Okay, okay. So, hello everyone who have been watching us for quite a long time. Now, I don't think there will be any need for introducing ourselves anymore. You know us. And welcome to the global panel on emotional regulation in differently able children and young people. And I have the panelists with us. I welcome everybody, all my friends. Before we begin, let us take a look at the outline of today's event. I'll have to share my screen. Something is... As you can see, all my colleagues are here. And now on to the outline of the event. First of all, we will discuss the objectives of today's session. Just after that, our panel discussion will begin. And you may send us questions using either the chat option on the at the bottom of your screen, or maybe the question answer option at the bottom of your computer screen. We will try our best to answer those questions during our session. Every panelist will speak for 10 minutes or so and will address your questions for another 2 minutes. Now, allow me to introduce myself. Let me just share my bio here. I'm Manubina Chakraborty, an inclusive education consultant and certified special educational needs coordinator with 15 years of experience in this field. I'm based in India. I worked in the UK previously and have been working in close collaboration with professionals around the globe for the last 10 years. Some of my collaborators are with me today. As you have already seen them, Tris Boschert from the United States. Tris will introduce herself. Then Ms. Tiffany Gems, who is presently in the UK. Basically, Tiffany, you are from the US, and now for a few years you are in the UK. And then Ms. Enid Webb, again from the US. And Ms. Blessing Ingepe. Am I right, Blessing?
You're very right.
Blessing is from Nigeria. So let us talk about emotional regulation, why we have chosen this topic. Actually, we have been discussing for the last 2 months that the knowing about emotional regulation is the need of the hour. But why? Every one of us is anxious these days because of the pandemic. We are working from home. We can't meet our elderly parents. There is uncertainty in everything. Our health, job, economy, education, everything is at stake. In this scenario, it is actually a good decision to discuss the issues that are bothering us and also, if possible, get some expert advice. And that is the reason of so many webinars, Zoom panels, etc. are taking place these days. Now on to our topic, emotional regulation. What is emotion? As you can see on the screen, emotion is a physiological response to the environment. And what is emotional regulation? Let me tell you in a simpler language. Emotional regulation is our ability to acknowledge our emotions without letting them control our behavior. Okay, let me explain. It is what allows us to address conflict with a friend without physically attacking them, or to express sadness about an event without collapsing in tears. With emotional regulation, we are able to focus our attention and complete the task at hand without getting distracted by what we are feeling at any given moment. And what about the differently able children here. This behavior, what I was talking about, these behaviors are accentuated even more in children and young people who are differently abled. Research says schools should impart social and emotional learning in order to help children regulate their emotions. Let me just show you a video here. Just a minute.
There's a lot of talk these days about SEL, social emotional learning. But what exactly is it? Social emotional learning is the process of learning social and emotional skills, and it's just as important as learning reading or math. This learning process is most effective when it begins early and continues through high school. Social emotional skills are essential for success in school, work, and life. With SEL, students learn to manage their own emotions and behaviors, have empathy and show care and concern for others, solve problems effectively, make responsible decisions, and maintain healthy relationships. Students learn to recognize what's happening inside them and to be aware of their emotions, which helps them deal with strong emotions and impulsive behaviors. It helps them stop, take a breath, and think about a situation before acting. Students learn to identify others' emotions and perspectives, which helps them empathize and show compassion, no matter who they are or what their background is. It's not difficult to imagine how this is important in the classroom and in life. Students learn to solve problems in peaceful ways and communicate assertively about what they need or want. This helps them get along with other students and get the help they need from adults. When students learn to make responsible decisions about their lives and their future, things can turn out better. Research shows social emotional learning makes a difference. Students who participate in SEL do better academically, have improved attitudes and behaviors, and act in delinquent or disruptive ways less often. In the United States, students with strong social-emotional competence are twice as likely to earn a college degree and nearly 50% more likely to graduate from high school and have a full-time job by age 25. Just as important, students who are socially and emotionally competent have more friends. This means they're more likely to feel connected to school and do well, and less likely to be left out or bullied. Simply put, by participating in social emotional learning, students learn the skills to succeed in every facet of school and the rest of their lives.
I'd like Tris to say more about this because it's a subject. But while showing this video, I got a question from a parent. Should I address that first? Is it all right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, actually, I basically deal more with children and young people who are on the autism spectrum. Now they are off school and their daily routine is not followed. So this parent is saying that she is having a tough time at home managing her 14-year-old son's frequent meltdowns. See, an autistic person's brain is already in hyperdrive when senses come in. Therefore, a change in routine can be enough to tip the scales in sensory input and cause meltdowns. It's like a computer that freezes because too many processes are occurring at once. There are a number of strategies that can be applied to help them to come out of meltdowns. I generally advise a few. Let me just show you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Is this 14-year-old verbal, fully able to express himself at this point?
Yes, he is verbal.
Oh, okay, so I would say I would ask if a social story has been applied, maybe,
yes.
or
Yes.
okay. So that would be the first thing I would do is about the transitions and routines is to write out a social story with the student about the difference about what's happening right now and how you know there's a transition and there's routines that are changing. So sometimes social stories can be really valuable for that to help students understand it.
Very much. Social stories help a lot. And there are a few things. I had a slide. Let me just find it. Just a minute. I would like to show it also. Yeah. Calming music sometimes helps. Then you can go for punching bags, tearing papers. It works a lot. In our school also, generally we keep old newspapers in stock, and whenever there is a problem, we give those newspapers to the child or the young person and ask them to tear it. And in this way, some way it can be controlled. Next is a worry diary. Since this child I know, this child is a student of mine, so I know him. He can write as well. Maybe not in full sentences, not very clearly, but yes, if something is bothering him, he can write at least some words. So worry diary can also be thought of. A quiet place, putting him at a quiet place, maybe a chill out room. And when they're in school, we have a sensory room in school. Generally, we take them to the sensory room, and with all the sensory activities, generally that sensory activities help them. So these are a few things which I generally advise, and that is my advice to you too. And my friend Enid also talked about the social stories. You can try them. And yes, now I will not take more time, and I would like to hand over to Tris. Tris, could you please throw some light on your subject, that is emotional regulation? But before that, could you please say something about yourself?
Sure. Okay, so I've been doing this since 2005, and what I actually teach is self-regulation of emotion. And it's from a program that I learned and became a trainer for out of Boulder Creek, California, called HeartMath. And so what they actually teach is how to get into the classroom, teach the students, the parents, and everybody how to calm down. So I've taught this internationally. It's a program that is actually certified here in the US as evidence-based. So it's really helpful, and it's helped children from test taking to learning different. So I'd like to share my screen with you, if that's okay. Can we start that? I've got a little PowerPoint prepared. So basically, it's an inside story that we're going to discuss today, and that's my contact information if anyone needs to do that. I would love to answer questions after we go through this, but it's very important that we teach our children how to express themselves. These meltdowns come from a massive adrenaline rush that comes in when we're trying to be protected. So we have new skills. I'm going to teach you a couple skills today. There's quite a bit more to the program, but our time is limited, but I think you'll be able to actually take these skills and start using them with your children and yourselves, because the co-regulation really can occur with staff and children and everybody when they're together on the same page and understanding as much as they can for their learning ability. So again, as my colleague mentioned, children who learn emotional competence show much more pro-social behavior, physical health, better attention skills, and popularity. So this is really important that we let them try to instill in themselves courage again, feeling confident. And it's very important to address emotions. For so long, we have been in a space where we say, I went to a classroom when they said, put your emotions outside the door. Well, that totally really limits our personal development and our optimal performance. And I think too, we're sitting here at this time with this COVID and this virus, and finally, as a world, we have a challenge that's together. So let's work together on this. We all have such great ideas and different ways to approach things. And I think it's really important that we join together as we did in this global panel. So thank you so much for having this. It's just absolutely wonderful. So what is an emotion? Okay. Let me just shrink this down. I can't see. Okay. It's the mental and physical associated with a wide variety of feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. Now, this is very interesting to me. Emotions are subjective experiences or experienced from an individual point of view. So your child has a different feeling of an emotion than you would, has a different trigger. And a lot of these children who learn differently have been told forever and ever that they can't do it, they're no good, they can't do this, they can't do that. So what does that do? Their trigger points, there's a lot of them, but they're also constantly worried. What is that worry? That is adrenaline running into the system. So what these programs teach is that that is a physiological response. So when you get nervous, frightened, worried, adrenaline rushes in your system and it's trying to protect you. Well, as that adrenaline's in your system, that's preparing you for fight or flight. When you need to pull information from your brain or get an answer to a test or figure out how to calm down a situation, you can't get to that, and that's called cortical inhibition. So this is really important to think about, that when we have a child that's melting down, or one of us actually, adults, with all this going on, we're not quite sure how to handle things. We're like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? You have to take a moment, and the technique I'm gonna teach you today, you take that moment, you calm down that emotion, and then you're able to retrieve the information. So there's no longer cortical inhibition, or there's no longer that block for you to get what the right thing is from your brain, okay? And another interesting thing is that your brain sends out a magnetic field of 3 inches and your heart of 3 feet. So if you calm down your emotion and you hook your heart to your brain, everything calms down. You're much more able to disseminate information, talk with your children, explain things, and then your life, everything becomes much better. So nobody makes you stressed out. And that's an interesting thought. It is the way you feel about something. So you can always change the perspective. So I'd like everyone to remember that we always have choice, and we have choice to change our perspective. It's very important that we do that in order to see a different solution, because we can't solve the problem from the same space that it's coming from. So I'd like to play a little movie here. Oh, maybe not, hang on. So what I was trying to get to was you see the world through how you feel. That movie, the beginning movie, was the exact same as the end of that movie. Does anyone have any comments? I mean, even the panel, if you'd like to comment on that, I'd love to hear what you have to say. But we have like, I think the woman who was talking about the meltdown, all these noises and things are coming into our head at one time. We change that. Like Manabina mentioned in the beginning, the calming music. This is why we do it. Why are we doing it? We're calming down the adrenaline. Where is the adrenaline coming from? The fear and anxiety. So here we see this picture. This is excitement, right? How did that movie make you feel? Anybody have any comments?
The beginning,
Trace, you always-
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to say, Therese always comments on the look on my face, even though I've seen that video 20 times and I use that stuff with my kids. It's funny how every time I get so uncomfortable, I can't hide it on my face. And then I'm calm. You can see it all over my face.
But if we think about a child who's been told over and over, they don't know, they can't do it, they can't do this, they can't do that. I mean, it's basically like Enid and I have been talking about, it's post-traumatic stress. And so if we don't teach them how to self-regulate and how to calm down themselves, they'll be going through life like that all the time. So actually, you know, the nonverbal kids, maybe showing pictures, maybe having them move. But when that adrenaline is in there and it's so fierce in your body, one of the other things that I think has been mentioned also is get up and move. Get the adrenaline out, do jumping jacks, run around the house, do some kind of a calming thing to get that adrenaline out. Okay, and then we're going to talk about a couple other ways as well.
Some kids need mutual regulation, and it might be a deep hug, you know, where you hold them tight. Maybe some kids need the deep pressure and they can't regulate. So then we bring in the mutual regulation too. And so that, some of those kids want that. Some of them need a weighted blanket. Some of them need something where we say, okay, we're going to calm you down until you're able to regulate yourself. We talk a lot about that too. So.
Right. And then again, think about this. As they've studied that magnetic field, okay, that is 3 feet out around somebody. So that hug that you provide, just standing there with a child, if you're coherent and calm and synced up your heart to your brain, that is radiating out. And so you're calming the situation around you as well. This is the same as these protests we're having in the US, right? What's happening is those people are all getting out there and they're in 3 feet of anxiety and fear. So that is what's multiplying in the situation, you know? So it's we want to calm that, and we can, as each individual, we have that choice and we can calm that down. Sometimes we feel we don't have the power, but we do. And when somebody has said, they've often said, oh, Therese, you're too emotional. Well, I don't believe that's a thing. I believe that there are energy renewing emotions and energy, you know, that take away. So those emotions of anxiety, they actually take away your energy. Whereas the emotions of excitement and you know, what enjoyment and everything, they absolutely raise your energy level. Anyone else have a comment on that movie or a thought?
Let me just see. Someone has written 2 different feelings, anxiety and peace. Someone has written it's emotional, the video is emotional. Yeah. There are some questions how to regulate emotions in Down syndrome, a child. It's like that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move forward then. I'll get to that. Okay.
Okay.
So our energy depleting emotions, we're aware of these. They're fear, frustration, impatience, anger, rage, apathy, resentment, anxiety, and disappointment. So what this is doing to the physiology of your body is, again, and I want to repeat this because sometimes it's a new concept, but it's sending in that adrenaline. So you're on high alert. and the body cannot stay on high alert all the time. So what happens is there's like 1,400 hormones that actually rush through the system that change the hormonal system. It also heightens the anxiety of the autonomic nervous system. So your nervous system is heightened. And so this is what we're seeing in the children. But what we have as the opposite is really, really interesting, that we have to look at courage and honor and hope, appreciation and gratitude, confidence, contentment, care and the love of family, compassion, adventure, enjoyment, tolerance, and patience. So these are the emotions that actually promote the 1,400 hormones to run through your system that send healing energy, healing to your cells. Every cell can change. And with this, this breathing technique we're going to do, it will change within a minute. And the more we practice and the more we do it, the less the emotional charge can take over. As that happens, we become more resilient. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to talk about a heart breathing exercise. Okay, these are exercises with science behind them that actually show a difference in the body. They actually change. So this is called heart focused breathing. And what I'd like everyone to try right now is to focus your attention in the area of your heart. This is not a diaphragmic breath. This is something that we do on the go immediately to break the cycle in the brain. Because as the brain is protecting you with its thought, it's a looping thought. And it's our instinctual part of the brain that keeps going, I'm going to protect you, so you're fearful, so this is scary, and it keeps doing that. What we want to do is break that cycle, such as a dog running at you, right? And you clap your hands and you break the cycle, and they are like, whoa, what just happened? So we're breaking that cycle from your brain to repeat and repeat. So if everyone could please just breathe in to the count of 5 and out to the count of 5. And take your focus to your heart. Imagine your heart. I'd like to know how some comments on how people are feeling, and to think about that you've just changed the energy and the magnetic field around you for 3 feet. So all across the world now, we have just done that for these groups of people, and we can do it, and we can continue to do it. So any comments on how this has helped anybody feel a little different?
Someone has written it feels positive.
I should be doing this more often.
Thank you, Blessing. I think you're right. We all do.
It's a very positive.
I felt so calm. I should do this when I'm anxious.
What's neat about this is, yoga and meditation are so needed, and it brings in all the DHEA and stores it in our system. But this is an immediate reaction. So this immediately dissipates that adrenaline, balances our autonomic nervous system. So we're in a space where we can, you know, take a test or realize a better behavior, right? Or ask for help. Otherwise, you're in a meltdown and you can't do that. So this is what I appreciate about this. And there are 5 or 6 techniques that we use to teach the children. And it's been funny, when I've been in some of these schools, they'll tell the teacher, you need to go calm down. What's interesting too is I bring in software as well. So my team and I can come in and we use software for the children. They really can understand that and then watch the changes. And once we empower them with that information, it's huge. They really understand that it's in their control, because how many children feel that nothing is in their control, right? So I believe this helps. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to say what you're saying about the software, because what's brilliant about it is that for those students who can't understand it on a conceptual level, they can see it on a visual level. And we know that many students on the spectrum have strengths visually, or we use visual, you know, schedules and things. So this is really nice, because even for me as an adult who has practiced this with Therese, when I saw it on a screen and I realized how much more control I could have and what I could do, and you see the visual, it's really powerful to be able to see a visual of I can control how I feel and the emotions I'm expressing and my anxiety levels. So that is a really great piece.
Right. And it's
you can
very
get
simple.
those. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, there's different variations of that. And and Therese, even as you know, it's not a highly expensive tool either, which is really wonderful about it. So parents can even get that tool to help their students have that, you know, visual representation. But as everyone saw here, you don't even need that. It's just one added extra part of it, that there is a visual piece sometimes to help students and even adults see that they can calm themselves down.
Where
Right.
would one
And-
get this tool? Sorry.
You can contact me, Tiffany, if you want. Through my website, I can send it or find out where the best place is for you to get it.
Okay.
And it, you know, again, as practitioners and teachers and parents, we need to be careful when we introduce something like this, that the child can be successful. We want, and this is what I think is so great about all of us getting together. There's so many different practices and so many different things that resonate with different people. Our RNA, our DNA is all different. We are not the same. And I know in the US, the schools have a problem with that. We have 30 kids in a class. How can you address somebody with different issues? So we teach to a basic, you know, middle of the road. And so many of our students are lost. And it's frustrating as parents. I know Enid and I have discussed this, and many of our other colleagues. What do we do as a parent? And now seeing everything at home, you can see that your child, when given the right tools and the right learning experiences, they don't have meltdowns. They may, you know, every now and then, but once you learn and integrate all this different information, then they have a chance. Whereas the school will say, well, your child misbehaves. Well, they're misbehaving because you're not challenging them. You're not meeting them at their level. So this is another technique I love. And this is for maybe younger children, or depending on, you know, what their level is. But you tell them to shift to the area around their heart, and they can put their hand on their heart. Here in the US, we can't really, we don't tell children to close their eyes. That tends to really help. And you, again, like we did before for the adults, we breathe in through the heart area and you take slow breaths. So we've scaled it down a little for the children. And then you breathe in a feeling of warm sunshine. So they understand that. Here, you know, at 111, that's really warm, but I know for Tiffany and Enid, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then you talk about how does that feel. For nonverbal, maybe they can give you a sign, or you work through, you know, what a feeling does to them. Do you feel your heart warm up? Maybe your sad or lonely feeling might start to go away, because we can't change loneliness from another person. We can only change loneliness within our heart and within ourselves. So once we start practicing these techniques, we get the adrenaline in a good space, then we're able to see and feel better and move forward. But again, it's all understandable. It's not like you can't deal with that person ever. You just have to find what it is, and you have to find the calming solution. The other thing that I suggest is you do appreciation. So when you practice these breathing techniques every morning, you can make an appreciation list and you carry that around with you and you talk about what you appreciate, because feelings of appreciation and gratitude calm down the adrenaline. Okay, and this is a really good thing for us to see what's good. Thrown in front of us in the US, we have all this news of all the bad things. And I know they try to get attention through these bad things, but guess what? There's a lot of good things. And it's really important that we know and look at them. And that'll change our heart and change our brain right away within 1 or 2 minutes. And if you practice these breathing techniques before there's an emotional charge, you can have a great response. Then we have the resilience, right? So now you're more resilient, the charge isn't as great, and we're able to move forward. So if we have any questions, that would be great.
Yes, someone has written, my 10-year-old son is having autism. He's verbal partially. Nowadays, in this lockdown period, he feels emotionally disturbed. Many times when we refuse to send him outside, or we stop him while he's doing any work, and he wanders in rooms and talks to himself, or hit others, or bang his head, he punches himself. How to calm him down when he does so? So this is one question from a parent.
Okay, so it is about the adrenaline that's running in his system. I think Enid knows a little bit more about this, but the hitting and it's trying to feel again because they don't know how to feel. So you've really got to figure out how to calm the adrenaline. If they can't, the natural thing for him to do, or the child, I don't know if it's male or female, is to walk. Because what are we doing? We're walking off that adrenaline. That adrenaline is so uncomfortable in our systems. I don't know if someone cuts you off in traffic, right? What do you feel? This rush in your system. So these children are feeling this all the time. So some way to calm that down is to physically have them move. That's why the punching. Or didn't you suggest a punching bag? And
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, all that stuff is really good.
I was wondering, Anabina, if you could explain to a family what a sensory room would look like, because I feel like that's a very valuable thing. The schools that are lucky enough to have them, right? But the parents could create a sensory space for their child at home as well. What do you think of that? I just feel like you might have some good suggestions.
Yeah,
there.
it is generally homes, they don't have a sensory room. It is really difficult, but of course, yes, some sort of balls. Maybe the balls are available in chemist shop in India. I don't know about the US. And a platform swing may help. Maybe a platform swing. And some lights can be put, and yes, there are plenty of videos available on YouTube about sensory rooms. So if someone has any question regarding this, if you could contact me, I can send you the links of those videos, so you will be able to know how a sensory room actually looks like. So yes, of course, we can do it at home. If we have space at home, we can try and do it.
Love that.
And
but trampoline also, somebody said. A trampoline.
saw that, a
that's great
trampoline.
idea. The little
Yeah.
Trampoline.
Those
trampolines are a
small
great
ones?
way.
Yeah, trampoline.
Yeah.
Smaller trampoline can be bought. Yes, actually, in the US you have big houses with maybe a big lounge area and all. In India, mostly we are in apartments in the cities, so it is difficult to just bring a trampoline, a big one for a young person or maybe a taller child at home. But yes, a smaller trampoline for small children can be kept at home. Space crunch is something we face in our day-to-day life in India. So I have really I have never seen anyone getting a trampoline at home. But yes, of
Yeah.
course, if you have space at home, you can bring one. And there are some more questions for you, Tris. Can you see the chat messages? Just a
I
minute.
I see ball
There are
pit
many
and
questions already.
yeah, I can't see the questions.
Yes, Lorna was my head teacher when I was in Scotland. Lorna wrote something. Before setting up a sensory space, it is important to assess the sensory preferences of a child.
Yes,
You're
very
very
important.
right. You're very right, Lorna. So generally, in India, occupational therapists do this. And like we have a school set up, in that school we have special educators, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists and all. So occupational therapists generally assess the sensory needs first, and after that they advise us what to do. One message.
Yeah, there's a question that just came up about suppressing emotion. Did you see that one? Yeah, I believe emotion is one of the largest drivers. I had more information, but we're running out of time and I don't want to take up more time. But emotion is the main physiological driver of the human. So yes, when we actually shut down emotion, we have shut down a major source of our system. And it's very difficult to function fully if you don't. So you basically want to balance the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotion. So when we feel this angst and this shakiness, it's all from emotion that is rushing the adrenaline in. So yes, I would say that when you have an emotion of fear, you want to change it to emotion of courage. You want to change the perspective, change the look of it as best you can.
Yeah, there are some more information or question. How to regulate excessive expression of joy if it is needed to be regulated.
It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
the same breath.
Same
You want to, yeah, because you can take a positive emotion like that and that'll send you off as well, right? So it's the same thing. You just want to balance it. You want to be in the middle. The DHEA is the calming hormone. The adrenaline is the activating hormone. So if you can balance that through that breath, and that's syncing your heart to your brain, okay, so you're getting out the looping thoughts, you're syncing your heart to your brain, and at that point, that's where it's calm, and you can use your emotion to your advantage. All those things, emotions are just wonderful. They're really good. They just need balancing so that the whole system is balanced. You can't leave out. So we know how to do mental through academics. We know how to do physical. We run around. Spiritual is in your heart and what you feel is spiritual. But the emotional part we've kind of left aside. And so that's why this discussion is so important. So yes, I would try not to push down emotion. And then we have the doctors I work with, we have high blood pressure, we have stomach problems, we have different things that come up because the adrenaline is stuck to causing all these issues. But learning that fact and being able to just calm that is a big gift in my mind.
Yeah. One more question. I think Tiffany would like to answer this question. How to boost confidence when a dyslexic learner compares self to peers and stops putting effort to improve? So anyway, we are, I think, going to Tiffany now, Tris. Tiffany, if you could just answer them, or before that, if you could just say something about yourself.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think the information that we're getting from Therese is so important. I won't take up too much time because my contribution to this conversation is more in the realm of education, and I think this conversation is covering a topic that is often not covered, and is something so important. And I'm so honored to sit with my colleagues on this panel. Therese, Enid, and Blessing all have extensive experience in this realm, working more in this realm. And mine is certainly more in the educational realm as a teacher, an early interventionist, and an advocate for dyslexic children. But let me address that educational question. It was about comparing oneself to someone without dyslexia.
To peers. And stops improving himself.
Yeah, I would say, as an educator, you would address these issues differently dependent upon the age of the child as well. An adolescent is going to have a different set of circumstances than a young child. But one of the first things we do when we start working with a dyslexic child at the center downstairs, or the school that's right below me, my center in Texas, is we start to explain to them what dyslexia is and what it is not. And it's important for the child to understand that it's not a fault in them. It's not, they're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. The way that they learn is likely has never been addressed, and they've never been taught in the way that they learn. And so therefore they have a lot of gaps. It's important to, when you're working with young children and adolescents as well, I mean, one of the first things we address is the self-esteem of the child, because until you can get that moving in the right direction, they really don't do as well with their tutoring. So you do have to address these issues. And again, it would be quite different for a young child than an older child. I guess the simple answer would be to start with explaining what dyslexia is and what it's not, and try to communicate to the child that it isn't any fault of theirs. It's not anything broken.
Sorry, as she's saying that, I had to hold this up, and I actually just happened to have it, which, like, that I could grab it and hold it up, because this is a book that I use with kids from 7 to 18, and it's good with adults too. And the beautiful thing about this book is it allows students to explore their strengths and their weaknesses, and they're able to understand that it's okay. We have strengths and we have weaknesses, and the weaknesses are things we can overcome, but the strengths are something so beautiful. So it's a book put out by Nessie. Tiffany James and Mike are responsible for this book, and it is the best book I've ever seen as far as just understanding dyslexia and starting to build that confidence. So I just had to share that real quick.
Oh, that's really kind, and Mike will be glad to hear that. I'll share your nice feedback after this. But that is what we do practically. We begin with that. The disappointing and sad thing as a practitioner is we know that the older the child is when they come to us, the more likely it is that we need to refer them out for counseling. And we do it all the time. And we have counselors that work with us because the more baggage they tend to carry with them, the older they get. And that's one of the reasons, or really the singular reason, that we are, both Mike and I are so passionate about early intervention, because by getting in there early and doing some of these things instructionally and explaining what dyslexia is and what it isn't to the family, to the child, to the teacher, it prevents a lot of these hurts and this baggage that these kids have to carry with them. When Teresa and I talked a couple weeks ago, I told her, again, this is I'm really enjoying your talk, by the way, Therese. I'm learning quite a lot. But we talked about teacher instincts, and good tutors and teachers seem to do this instinctively. When you were talking, I was thinking about things that good teachers do. It's changing the tone of voice can, especially with a young child, can bring that high energy or unhappiness down to a place of calm. And you want to get them to a place of calm, and you can do that just by softening your voice or into a whisper. Some of us, we might rub them on the back if that's something they like, something that they are comfortable with. Some kids don't want to be touched at all, and that's okay too. And just I don't know, as a teacher, you just learn to just validate their feelings. It's okay. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that this is the way that you're feeling, and that is okay. And we're just going to work from here to get where we need to go. But you have to do this and get the child to a place of calm, and then you can start teaching them. And then once you give them real tools and achievable goals, they start to feel that inside that they can do it. Little by little, you just build it up and build it up and build it up, and they get stronger and stronger, and they start to learn faster and faster. I don't know what if Enid or Blessing have any input on that, but that has been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's that self-esteem first. It's so important, and getting professionals like Therese involved when we have especially some older children that have more distinct difficulties with residual hurt, pain, more difficulties with managing their behaviors and emotions in the classroom, because it gets worse and worse the older the children get. But anyway, I just again wanted to I don't want to take up, I'll certainly like to address educational questions if I can, but I'm finding what Therese is sharing, I know that she had another slide, I think, to share with us, and I'm finding that information so valuable, and it's really more topical to the conversation, what they have to impart. So I'm happy to move on to the next speaker, unless there's something educationally or specific to dyslexia I can address. I'm happy to move on to Enid there. If
Someone just asked who the author was of the book. It's Mike Jones.
It's Mike Jones, yeah.
Mike
Okay.
Jones. Yes. And
Mike-
so
Mike-
since we're talking about Mike Jones, do you just want to say something about the movie really quickly?
Sure. Okay. So we shared this with Manavina last week, I believe, and the movie is called Michael. It is really the story of my husband Mike and his mother. It's a story of a mother who just saw her child just being crushed by the educational system. He was unable to even spell his own name at 8 or 9 years old. He was starting to fight at school because he was being bullied. And when he was backed into a corner, he started to fight. And he was being asked to leave several schools, and they just couldn't find a place for him to be. Pat is a math teacher. She was trained as a math teacher. She knew she had to help her child, and she didn't know how she was going to do it, but she knew she was going to do it. And she just was like a lioness. She read everything she could. She brought herself over to America to get some training. She found the only available training in the UK, and she learned Orton Gillingham, and then she evolved it all. Yes? Oh, I thought I heard something. It evolved into her own system. So she took Orton Gillingham and she changed it and made it more game-based and more fun. Taught Mike how to read. Had Mike assessed by an educational psychologist first. Found out it was indeed dyslexia, and he was actually very, very intelligent. So there was no reason why he couldn't spell or read. She brought him home. He went back to school, and he wound up graduating top of his class in law. So he did very well. And when he was in his summer after law school, between the time that he would go to do a study to be a barrister, there's a time here in between, he worked at his mother's center answering the phone just to help his mother out that summer. And he was so moved by the phone calls of especially mothers who were crying, and they were just desperate. They didn't know what to do. it brought back those feelings to him, and he realized that summer that he really wasn't destined to be a lawyer. He went back to school again and got another degree in he trained as a dyslexia specialist teacher, and then he went to work for his mother as a teacher for quite a few years in the center right next door to this building. So that is their story. Pat eventually went on to form start a school and a center that's world renowned. She has an OBE from the Queen of England for her services to dyslexia. And it all started at her kitchen table. After she taught Mike to read, mothers would call and ask her, what can I do? Please help me. And she started to help them out of her home. And the practice just grew and grew and grew. And she hired more and more educators and educational psychologists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. And the practice just grew and grew into what it is today. And then eventually grew into a school as well. So two separate institutions and a charity. And she's now retired. And the film Michael is about the beginnings of that story, and just Mike's real difficulty. And he still to this day will tell you, if you ask him, he's so damaged by what happened to him at school. He's still damaged to this day. So it is our mission in life, the both of us, to try to prevent as much of that as we can, to do as much as we can to prevent children from being damaged in the educational system. So anyway, that's the story of Michael. Thank you.
I saw a question come up that I'd like, if possible, for Enid to address. There was a question about a child who couldn't cry. Did anyone see that? It kind of flashed.
I didn't see that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Now, Enid, what do you think about that?
Or Enid,
well, it's funny.
You guys have to say.
Yeah, well, I'll say with a child who has been somewhat on the spectrum, my own child struggled with that. Struggled with knowing how to cry and knowing how to share her emotions. And so I think it's one of those things where I think we make assumptions as parents, well-meaning assumptions. And I didn't know that she was struggling with not knowing how to get that out, right? And so I just thought she was tough and I overly cry. I'm overly emotional. So, and that's difficult too when you have a student who doesn't express emotions the same way that you express emotions. And it's sometimes hard to understand that when you express it one way and they express it another way. But I would say that I would encourage young people, knowing what I know from my own child, is just to say, let's get it out. Let's get it out. And maybe crying will be a form that will come and it'll be a way of expressing. But I think some people will get it out one way and some people will get it out with tears. I mean, what do you think, Therese? I just think if it's a punching bag, maybe,
And I'm wondering, I'm wondering about the perspective again, because for so many years it's been crying is weak, right? In different cultures, crying is weak. So we have to change that perspective and know that what is crying? It's getting out the adrenaline. It's another way of the body trying to get back to homeostasis, right? What do you think, Tiffany?
I don't know. Again, I just go back to instincts. As a teacher, I probably would have advised, if this was a teacher years ago and I was in the classroom, is that they may not need to cry. It may be, and like Enid said, they may be able to express those emotions in another way. It's okay either way. It's okay to cry. It's okay not to cry.
I agree. And I'm Blessing, what do you think about it?
Sorry.
Manvina?
Is Blessing still with us?
Yeah, it's same what Tiffany said. I think.
No, and then is Blessing still with us?
Blessing, where are
Did we
you?
lose her?
Where is Blessing?
I feel like we lost her.
I
think so.
I wonder if she realizes.
Yeah, I feel like we lost her along the way. I was like, she's not really chiming in.
I wonder if she realizes we can't hear her.
So, Enid, if you could just say something about yourself, because we missed that introduction part as well. and then please carry on with your experiences, sharing your
Okay.
experiences.
Okay, thanks. I spent 17 years in the public schools, but prior to working in the public schools, I was trained with at the UCLA Discrete Trial Clinic with Dr. Ivar Lavas through the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And during that time, I did home programs, spent a lot of time at the beginning of my career training in SERTS, which stands for Social Communication, Emotional Regulation, and Transactional Supports. And the SERTS program came out of the Yale Autism Studies and the Yale Autism Center. So that was probably one of the most powerful things I've ever had in my career for all students, because it really helped me to understand that with anybody, we all need help with mutual regulation at times in our lives. I mean, if we are, let me just be honest with this. Therese is part of my mutual regulation. So if I'm having a bad day as my friend and my colleague, I can call her up and say, I don't know, I'm having a bad day. And, you know, and many friends are this. And so they can say, okay, I'm going to help you mutually regulate right now. And then with that mutual regulation, I'm able then to say, okay, I can self-regulate, but we all need a little bit of help with mutual regulation. And so some need more help than others. And I think that that was a really helpful part of that training, is understanding that sometimes the students need more help than others. And the ultimate goal is to get them completely independent in their emotional regulation. However, we all need a little help sometimes. So with that, though, I think part of that's what Tiffany's talking about as well, with trying to get in early, number one, and number two, building that confidence and that self-esteem, because it's this whole thing. We build regulation, mutual regulation, self-regulation, and then we have to build that confidence. Well, the confidence just doesn't come. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to be confident today. I think many adults even have experienced that. And even as Tiffany was explaining, that some of that stuff stays with you. Some of that stuff we carry with us that we feel. So we can have other people say to us sometimes when we're not feeling our best, we have other people say, oh, well, you know, you're doing great at this. And you're like, oh, maybe I am, you know. So it's a lot of really giving the students that feedback when they can't feel it themselves. But that being said, you have to be able to give them proof. So it's really important that we give students opportunities to be successful. So whatever it is, and we start little and then we build big. And so we start with, okay, we want them to complete just a task and feel really good about completing that task. And then once they do that, we're like, wow, you did that. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And then we can pull back on the really excitement every time until they start to feel it themselves. So, but it was interesting. I just want to share one really quick story. Oh yeah, so my background is in first autism and then dyslexia. But I have a student who came to me and her mom said she was in a self-contained classroom and that she couldn't learn to read. And, but she was very clever in her ability to get out of our sessions. Her avoidance tactics when I first met her were brilliant. So when you have a student like that, you're like, well, if they are so brilliant at their avoidance tactics, clearly they're able to learn. They've learned how to get around these situations. So we started to. I brought Therese actually in on this one, and a lot of things started to make sense to the family and even to the student about. They had her in a self-contained classroom with students who were way lower than her. Cognitively. And so she knew she should be able to learn, but they weren't setting her up for success and they weren't giving her the tools to be successful. So she was really good at the avoidance tactics for about the first 3 sessions. Then as she started to see the success and her mom was working on things in between sessions and she was super successful, this child is so focused now, can sit there. We've worked on listening skills. It's a different child than when I first met her, because she's seeing the success, because she's fully capable. And now she doesn't need the avoidance tactics because she knows she can be successful. So when they don't feel, and Teresa's talked a lot about this, and I've talked a lot about this as well, students from a very young age will perceive a perceived failure, like perceives a task that may be failure as the same thing as if a bear were coming at them. The brain goes into that protective mode to say, failure alert, I'm going to protect you now. So when your brain goes into the protective mode of a bear coming at you or something coming at you, and you're in flight, fight, or freeze, you cannot access critical or creative thinking. It is impossible. So I see this with my students. So a lot of times that behavior that then many students really benefit from a self-contained class. But that being said, some students should not be in that environment. And so they exhibit even more behaviors because they know they don't fit into that environment. And so now we're actually working with the school to make sure she's not going to be in a self-contained classroom anymore. She's going to be in with her typically developing peers, and she is fully able to perform in class and be attending and focused and engaged. So it's interesting to see how just getting her in a place where she could learn and she could feel comfortable, but also showing her the success along the way, and her mom getting really excited, and I'm getting really excited, and she's getting a lot of praise, and now she's even reading books with some help. It really is, it snowballs. And Tiffany, you see that too. It's like you're saying, they get the counseling, they get the support, and you see that, Manvina, too. I'm sure when you see the success, then it's just, they feel like they can do so much more. So that's what I'm passionate about and I just thought that was such a great contrast of the student who started out, not rhyming. Oh, and that's one thing, really important thing I want to bring up right now. When you have students on the autism spectrum and they're in the schools, at least in the United States, they teach them very differently than they would teach a student who maybe is, developed, has and I love how you say differently abled, because I believe in neurodiversity, and I believe that it's just a different way of learning. So when we're differently abled and we have a different way of learning, and the school doesn't know how to teach to that way of learning, that also creates a lot of anxiety. And so that alone, just not understanding the child, creates that anxiety. And so I think it's just really important that we understand that first we have to calm that down, the stuff Therese is talking about, but then we have to show them they can be successful. And then, they're able to learn so much more. And I mean, that's what I want to say. Sorry, I got off. I was like, okay. So they don't teach the same way. And for students who are differently abled. And so what they do is they teach sight words. They teach sight words, they teach fry phrases. They teach things where these students basically can learn just enough to get by to say they taught them how to read. And it really bothers me. So, and Tiffany, and and you're going to love this too, because you know this, and they came out with a very reputable study that said, no, actually what we do know is that students on the spectrum need phonological development even more than typically developing children, and that they can get it and they can understand it if you can teach it in the way that they need to understand it. And half of teaching them in the way that they need to understand it is just calming that nervous system, just getting them in a place where they can be available for learning. So once that happens, they can learn rhyming, they can learn all that. They don't need to be taught, just how to get by. And so that's something I'm very passionate about, everyone understanding. And Tiffany and I share that passion of phonological awareness. It's Nessie is so strong in that phonological development. And it's so important for every student across the board, no matter how differently abled you are, no matter what your different ability is, to be able to just understand that you need to learn reading in the same developmental sequence that anybody else. So that's pretty much what I have to say.
So let me see if there is any question. What if child doesn't respond to appreciation and seeks material reinforcement, chocolate, toys, etc.? Someone has asked.
If they don't respond to certain reinforcements?
Appreciation, and then that is a challenge, finding that thing that gets that child.
Finding what works, right?
Yeah. And what advice would you have for parents who have children with Down syndrome?
So I think a lot of what Therese talks about as well is you know, when we can mutually regulate. So I know when I'm in my history working with students with Down syndrome, a lot of their frustration comes from the difficulty not being able to communicate. And so I would say much of the time when you're helping them mutually regulate, it is trying to kind of isolate what it is that's stress that's giving them the anxiety or shooting the adrenaline through. So that's a challenge as far as finding that communication system to where your child is able to communicate with you what they're feeling, or just communicate with you. Sometimes, like Therese said, it's pointing to pictures. This is how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
And then, but really giving them those opportunities to communicate. That being said, as someone who worked on speech and language with students with Down syndrome, sometimes expecting them to communicate can be a stressor too, because communication can be a challenge. So it's mutual regulation depending on the child, giving them that love, letting them understand that you know they're struggling, and getting them to calm down, because then they can communicate more effectively.
And one more question is there. What advice do you have for parents who do not have any acceptance of their child's special needs?
That's it. Well, that's the parents don't have acceptance of the child's special needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, because
Parents are on the denial mode most of the time, so they take some time to come out of it. So what advice do you have for them?
Is it somebody who wants to help them, or I mean, that's the thing.
Yes. She runs a special education center.
I would say showing maybe a developmental sequence of some skills that a student should typically have by a certain age, and then looking at the skills that maybe that child has at that age.
Yeah.
And as Tiffany said, early intervention with any differently abled brain or any neurodiversity, as we all are neurodiverse and we're all differently abled, but early intervention for all of it is key, and of course we all, many of us can be in that situation where we're just now discovering something and we think, oh my gosh, if we had only had early intervention. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but we can intervene as soon as we know, and in the future we can always know that early intervention is so important. So I think that's something that we really want to get across, is the earlier that we get this, so they start to develop the skills and really start building that self-esteem. However, once we, if let's say I have a student who's 13 right now who's really struggling, so it doesn't help the parents to say, oh, early intervention would have been great for you, but we can get him where he is, and we can find out where his holes are, and we can fill them in, and we can continually say, as I say to my students, and I'm sure that Tiffany and Mike say, this is not your fault. This is not your fault that you weren't taught in the way you need to learn. And you are going to be now, and you're gonna, and the point is there's always hope. It's never, this is where you're going to be, and this is where you're always going to be. Every student at every level can always improve their skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and if I could just
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, but can I add something real quick too? Maybe if they come from the point of the gifts that the child has. So your child's really, really good at this, but we need to work on this. You see what I mean? So we're coming from a really positive point and saying, look, you've got, they've got this skill set, because all these children, I know everybody on this panel agrees, they're gifted in some area. So concentrate on the gift to get the parent to buy in, and then move on forward to say, okay, so this is good, this is really good, we need to just, concentrate on this.
So one more question for dyslexia actually. What happens to a dyslexic student who is 14 years old, never had any intervention due to lack of awareness from parents as well as from school, who always struggled with academics and got pulled by the teachers for it, and now cannot cope with the online classes that are going on, and it is leading to emotional disturbance and other behavior difficulties?
Is this a student in India?
I think it's from India. Yeah.
Okay.
Anita Lobo has asked.
I was going to say one thing, and then Tiffany, I think you were going to say something about documenting right now during this period of time that we're home and not in school. I can't stress enough that if you're working with your student and something on the computer where they're not getting enough support from the school is causing them anxiety, document that because it's not an effective method of, you know, and I know in the United States we have a lot of safeguards for that, and I'm not sure about in India, but I do know that the more documentation families have right now about their successes with their students at home, as well as their challenges, are going to help them really develop a good program when they go back.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And I was that really ties into what I was going to say. I mean, we have to be realistic here. If the child has never had intervention and has struggled academically at school, I mean, we would expect them to struggle academically at home. They are going to struggle, and maybe even more so with the added. It could be stressful for the child to have it presented electronically, and a kind of a change in format, and maybe it's new. All of those things could add extra stress and extra pressure. But you have to be realistic. If the child is 14, never had intervention, we're going to expect him to perform at the level of a child that's never had intervention. It is what it is. We can't expect anything else. If you haven't provided the child with intervention to improve those skills, you can't expect them to be performing at a higher level when they're at home.
Yeah. Have you lost Blessing on the way?
I thought I saw her come on. I saw Blessing has joined.
Yeah. She came back.
I'm right here.
Oh, she's back.
Okay.
One more question is from Lorna Wallace from Glasgow. Has anyone tried switching polarity with young people? I haven't tried.
That. Has anyone tried what?
Bipolar, switching polarity.
No.
I haven't tried.
Does anyone want to jump in on that? I don't have an answer.
Well, I know of them doing it as infants, switching and taking an infant and actually trying to switch a polarity. I don't know. That's very interesting. I'd love to hear about that.
Okay.
Ina, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm not familiar with that either.
No.
No.
So, where is Blessing? Blessing, are you there? It's actually now.
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
There she is.
Oh, okay. I can see her now.
Where are you?
You hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you
All
please
right.
turn on your video, Blessing?
Okay, I'm glad. Yes, I'm right here. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
I've been in and out, but I'm here now.
Okay. Blessing, could you please say something about yourself first? And then,
Okay, while I'm talking, okay, let me go on. Thank God I'm the last person because everyone has said almost everything, so they've done like the bulk of the job. So my name is Blessing Ingape. I'm a certified special needs teacher, and I've been working with these kids for 5 years now. And when I started, I am happy because my certification with the Cadet Academy covered the 13 disabilities. And like I always say, I have a passion for children. Can you hear me? Yeah, I have a passion for children with
your voice is breaking.
dyslexia. Although I have, I'm a certified autism specialist as well. And today I'll be sharing my experience because I've worked with kids with autism in the classroom for a few years now. So I'll be sharing my experience and what has helped me in helping them to regulate their emotions. Most of the things I'm going to say are things that have been said already. But I actually put up this slide because the last time I had a conversation with an Indian lady, she couldn't hear me very well because of my accent. I hope you all can hear me right now.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So the Good. So the slides are going to help for people who can hear me well or find it difficult to understand my accent. So I'm going to be talking about practical emotional regulation strategies for children with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. And I'm happy because the people on the panel have said a lot. So I have just 10 minutes to say what I have to say. So I'd like to give some strategies. Basically, I'm talking to parents, but I believe these strategies will also help them a lot. And they help. And one thing about these strategies is that you can do it right now at home. You don't have to go out, buy something new, or call for something new, or order for something new. So it's like using what you have right now to help your child with autism at home. So the first strategy I would like to talk about is providing a structure and safety. So provide structure and provide safety. Strategy one, and we're going to look at point under that. One, have a routine. I know in schools we have routines a lot, but parents most times is either they don't have a routine or they do not like working with the routine. We've had parents at the center tell us, oh, can we have a routine at home too? And we create one for them. But then we realize that they don't follow it. I know right now kids are not in school, but having a routine at home is also very helpful because children with ASD tend to do the best when they have highly structured schedule or routine. So it is important for you to set up a schedule for your child with regular times for meals, for therapy, for school, if you're having online school, for bedtime, and all of that. And also try to keep disruptions to this routine to a minimum. If there is an unavoidable schedule change, make sure you prepare your child for it in advance. Now, this thing is a simple, but as you've heard people on the panel and spoke about it earlier on, it is very important for them to have a schedule and to have a routine. And this is an example of one. This is one here for a child I worked with in Abidjan here in Africa. And you can see some of the words there in French. Yes, that explains why. But you have the time, you have the activity, you have the image, which is the visual, and then you have the notes. For me, sometimes where the note is where I love to put reward. Okay, so if you're able to do your activity well, you get a reward for doing your activity well. So something this simple, just typing it at home, placing the pictures, help your child with autism to understand that there's a routine at home. So they are not caught unaware. They understand that, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I have to pray. And then after that, I have to go have my bath. And then after that, whatever comes next. For you, it could be eating, or it could be going to school online, or whatever it is. Make sure you have a schedule for your child. And that brings me to the next thing, where I was talking about rewards over there, where I wrote notes, where you see notes over there. Most times I love to put rewards. So reward good behavior. You know, parents, especially parents, were so good at getting angry when our kids don't behave well, but we don't reward behavior as often as we get angry when our kids behave the wrong way. So positive reinforcement can go a long way with children with ASD. So make an effort to catch them doing something good. And don't think because your child is non-verbal, they don't understand. They do understand. I'm sure you've heard from the panelists and you've heard all they have to say about this. They understand what is happening. Your child may be non-verbal, but your child knows when you're telling them, wow, great job, Andrew. Great job, Ishan. Great job, Shahrukh Khan. I'm calling all the Indian names I know. So praise them when they act appropriately, okay? And make sure you're specific about the behavior. So don't just say, good job, well done. Make sure you tell them what they have done. So you could say, good job following your schedule today. Good job being calm today. Good job cleaning the table today. Make sure you're specific, that helps. And also look for other ways to reward them, such as giving them a sticker or letting them play with their favorite toy or watching their favorite TV show or whatever it is. But make sure you reward good behavior always. Okay, and then create a home safety zone. We're talking about sensory rooms, okay? So if you don't have the resources to get all of the gadgets and everything you need in the sensory room, all you need to do is just have a special place at home for your child. Carve out a private space in your home where your child can relax, okay? Feel secure and be safe. I mean, it could be a room, and you just let everyone know that, this room, let's assume your son's name is Ishan. Let me call his name from my favorite movie, like Stars on it. So just assume that there is a particular room at home. So you can let everyone know that this room is for Ishan, and this is for him when he's getting or high and angry. This will involve organizing and setting boundaries in ways your child can understand. So also at home, make sure you set boundaries as well. Visual cues can be helpful, all right? And sometimes when we get angry, like Therese was talking about our environment, that we are the one that choose or determine how serene it is. We are the one that control the environment. The environment doesn't control us. So sometimes we get angry at these kids for doing things that they don't even know that they're doing wrong. So you might want to have color tape marking areas that are off limits. So don't just say, hey Ishan, don't touch this thing. You can have a colored marking area that says this area, this red label here shows that you shouldn't touch anything here. It shows that this area is off limits. And then you should also label items at home, okay? Your child with ASD is not like every other child in the house. You need to label things so that they can know what it is. And I also love charts that help them express themselves. I know on the panel today we spoke about that, where they can say when they're sad, they can't say it verbally, but they can touch it. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm afraid. You may also need to safety proof your house if your child is prone to tantrums or other self-injury behaviors. So you need to get all of those things out of the way. You know the kind of child you have. If they're prone to tantrums, they're prone to inflicting self-injury on themselves, then it is very important that you make sure you clear your environment of objects that can have all of that on their behavior, on objects that can affect them. So I have an example here of something this you can create this at home. So how do you feel today? And you can put it in that room that is a safety room for your child. So let's call him Sean, a safety room where he can go and relax and getting angry. So you have different emotions here. It doesn't have to be this way. Sometimes if you have a printer at home, a good phone, you can take a picture of your child when they're angry, when they're happy, when they're smiling, and you can put it on the wall so that they can let you know how to feel. This is just a sample to lead us for someone that might be wondering what I'm talking about. Okay, so we talked about the strategies, about putting structures in place. Now let's talk about the second strategy, okay? Finding non-verbal ways to connect. Now I've heard a lot of comments and chats here about what if my child can talk, what if my child is non-verbal, and all of that. Communication doesn't necessarily mean being verbal, okay? People communicate without even talking. We could be in the room and I could look at Tiffany, and Tiffany looking at my eyes, she can see that I'm trying to communicate something. I could look at whoever it is in the room, and without saying a word, communication will have occurred. So the fact that your child is non-verbal doesn't mean communication is not happening. So make sure you look for non-verbal cues, all right? If you're observant and aware, you can learn to pick up on the non-verbal cues that children with ASD use to communicate. Pay attention to the kinds of sounds they make, their facial expressions, and the gesture they use when they're tired, hungry, or wanting something. I'll give an example of one of my child. Let me call him Peter for today. Usually when he starts getting angry, he starts chanting his name. So you can hear him saying, Peter, 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 Peter. So he gets all high. So at the beginning, when we hear him start chanting his name, Peter, Peter, we know it is time to find a solution. So for you, it could be time to take him to that room that you created specially for him to calm down. And if you think it's something he needs, a toy, whatever it is, you know your child better, you can provide that which he needs. But just in case you're confused and you don't even know what your child needs, that's a good time to take them to that room that is serene, that is quiet. I love that video that Therese showed us. I mean, I'm going to be doing that exercise always. Serene environments are awesome. So you can take him to that quiet place where he can calm down, and when he's done calming down, he can show you, probably using visuals, what the problem is. That has helped in the classroom, and I'm sure it will also help you at home. Okay, then figure out the motivation behind the tantrum. That's important. Now you have your child screaming all over the place. You were able to control and take him to a room, let's call it the sensory room, where you kept him there for a while to calm down. Now when he's calm, it's very important for you to find out what happened. There is something in ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis, called ABC, antecedents, behavior, consequence. So it's important for you to find out why did Ishan behave that way? And keeping records is going to help you. You might not be sure, you might not be so sure about what happened that day, but if you continually keep records of what is happening, what happens before he starts chanting his name? After a few weeks, you're going to see a record of what is happening, and you can tell what the problem is. All right. So it's only natural to feel upset when you are misunderstood or ignored, and it is no different for children with ASD. They're kids, okay? And they're human beings too. When they're misunderstood and they're ignored, they get angry, they act out, all right? Because you as a parent, you're not picking up on their non-verbal cues, and it can be so frustrating. I love to put myself in their shoes. So just imagine I couldn't speak. I'm right here, I'm trying to express myself, I'm trying to talk, but you're not understanding me. And I need help immediately. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to throw tantrums because that's the only way you're going to get my attention. And truly, that is the only way these kids get our attention, either at home or at school. We don't run around until they start throwing tantrums. So I could be trying to tap the table, trying to tell you something, and you ignore. And when I start screaming, everyone comes around. So in a way, we have unconsciously told them that when you throw tantrums, you get my attention the most. So they do all of that. But it's important that you find out what is happening. Why is your child behaving that way? And then make time for fun. Okay? A child coping with ASD is still a child and their parents. There needs to be more than just therapy. Right now, most people as kids have gone online. For me, my kids are full and they're online. I know most kids too are receiving therapy online. But it's important that playtime, when your child is most alert and awake, okay? Figure out ways to have fun together by thinking about the things that make your child smile, laugh, and come out of their shell. So when you're talking about play, don't play with the child the way you want to be played or the way their siblings want to play or the way their siblings want to play. Make sure you figure out ways your child wants to have fun. Okay, what makes your child smile, what makes them happy, and set aside that time to have fun with them. Play is an essential part of learning for all children, and it shouldn't feel like work. So don't do it like it's work. Really be there. People know when you're there. For instance, if I'm talking to Therese or Enid, I'm sure they can tell if I'm giving them my full attention or not. And it is not different from children. They also know when you're giving them your full attention or if you're just marking time. So create time for fun and be there. Leave your phone aside, leave your TV aside, and just have fun. Let the kids feel you and let the kids know that you're with them. Hope everyone can still hear me. I turn off my video so that my network doesn't go off. But I hope I still have your attention. Okay, now, and then pay attention to your child's sensory sensitivity. This is very important.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So many children with ASD are hypersensitive to light, to sound, touch, taste, smell. We had a child who was sensitive to long. We didn't even know that time. After a while, we realized that's why keeping records is very important. You get to know why. And when we went back to our records, we realized that for most of the times that he showed tantrums was when he was on long sleep. So we had to take the long sleep away, and he was always on short sleep. And that sensitive to sensitive stimuli, it is important that you figure out what sight, sound, smell, movement, and tactile sensations trigger your child's disruptive behavior and what elicits a positive response. If you understand what affects your child, you'll be better at troubleshooting problems at preventing situations that cause difficulties and creating successful experiences. So find out. We've been talking about our kids throwing tantrums, getting angry. Have you sat down, thought about why, what triggers that tantrum? It could be that they are sensitive, a particular sound. And I always tell parents, words are very important. They tell you what is happening. So if a child is throwing tantrums today, I'm going to try to figure out why. I'm going to write out different things I think it's happening. Okay, is it the sound? Did someone just scream on cotton today? I'm going to write down my options. And after a few weeks, if I go back and look down at the things I've written, I'm able to tell exactly when all of these issues come up, and I can tell what the problem is, what the sensory issue is. So parents, teachers, keeping records, it's very important here. If you didn't get anything out of what I'm saying, make sure you get the part where I'm talking about keeping records, keeping down reports, figuring out what is triggering tantrum and what is triggering sensory sensitivity. So this is strategy 3. And when Therese was showing us the video, I just thought about it, and I'm happy I brought it up. Now we'll be talking about the children. I think also for parents, this is also important for you. It's important for you to find help and support. Because sometimes, because we're angry, we're stressed out, we get to pour our frustrations on this kid, or sometimes we tend to have, we're not patient enough to calm down and listen to what you're saying. So as a parent, I know in a period like this, where the kids are at home with you, especially your child with autism, is at home with you, you're probably stressed out as well. It is very important that you find help and support in times like this. And this is one of the support, okay? I'm grateful for Marobina. Oh my God, I hope I called that name correctly. I'm grateful for her for creating this platform, which is giving support to families out there. So get engaged in more of this support group, okay? Because joining an ASD support group is a great way to meet other families that are dealing with the same challenge you're facing. Yeah. Because like right now in this room, we have families who are going through the same thing you are. And here we're specialists here on this panel. We've also seen families go through all of this. So, I mean, when we come together, we're able to share experience and we're able to help each other. Like I don't have a special needs, but what Therese spoke about on the exercise is something I've written down and something I've told myself I'm going to do each time I get anxious or scared or all of that. So you see, just in this few minutes, we're connecting and we're feeling better. I feel better for one, I do. So parents can share information, get advice, and lean on each other for emotional support. Just being around others in the same boat and sharing their experience can go a long way towards reducing the isolation many parents with children with ASD feel. So talk about your child, talk about how to handle your child's tantrum, but we need to focus on you now because we know handling a child with special needs with autism who is right now confined at home with the routine that has changed can be quite stressful, not just on the child, but also on you as a parent. So find support groups and join them.
Good advice.
Can I jump in and say something really quickly about what you just said? Are we still there?
And then
I can hear you.
You can also
oh, okay. I didn't know. Oh, you're not done. Sorry.
No, go on. I'm listening.
Oh, I just wanted to just piggyback on what you were saying about the rewards and making it fun. And I can't stress enough that's for all children. So
yes,
you know, all differently abled children. And with my children, you know, and I have some students I work with on the computer who are on the on the autism spectrum, but have also been called dyslexic. So it's interesting how, you know, in some ways, I think that's a spectrum just of neurodiversity in general. But I believe that a couple points you brought up that I just really wanted to emphasize is that rewards are so important for all kids when they're learning. And when rewards are implemented and introduced. I mean, we all do better when we have rewards. And I know that like the Nessie program has coins. The kids can earn coins as they go. And, you know, those are rewards. The kids are earning something and then they're able to do more things with those. And so with what I do with students, especially in the summertime, is I implement a reward program. And it was hilarious the other day because literally I had a student who the day before was blocked and was struggling with this thing. And then I tell him I'm going to give him 25 points this next day. And he is just soaring because he knows now he's not thinking about this skill that's so hard for him. He's thinking about these points he's going to get. So I just love that I mean, your slides are wonderful and so clear, and thank you for that. And so again, I just can't stress enough the importance of rewards. And as you said, catch them doing stuff well. It doesn't have to be a tangible reward either. It can be just praise. And again, and specify what they did, because that goes into what I was saying earlier about building that confidence. So if you say, wow, I love the way you were, you know, even if it's like, I love the way you took on that challenge. You knew it was going to be hard, but you took on that challenge or whatever it is, just really reinforcing what they're doing well. And then so many great points, Blessing, that you brought up. And another thing is that the visual of maybe on a calendar, you can mark off, you know, here's the skill we're working on. Look, you read, you know, that day, or you did this that day. Let's give you some points or something, and then you're going to earn a reward. So that can be something that can be valuable at home, in a tutoring program, and, you know, anything. If rewards and positive praise are part of it, that you can't go wrong with that part. And you know, they say it takes 10 positives to counteract every one negative. So if we think about it that way too, with these students who maybe are receiving these messages,
thank you so
even
much. Kids get a lot of reward.
Even subtly they get messages that's negative, right? So we need to give them a positive. And so and then one other thing the make time for fun is so important. Learning should be so much fun. And then you brought up a great point with behavior and the ABC. So what I want to say to people in the US, this is super important. If for any reason whatsoever, the school district, and I do know this applies in the US, and I'm not sure how this applies everywhere else, but if you're receiving information from the school district that your child has behavior issues of any kind that are getting in the way of their learning, they need to do an FBA, and that's a functional behavioral analysis. And so I just want to throw that out there. And it's even stated in the law. And that's why I say that very specifically, because if it says on the individualized education plan, our documentation, it says, if there is a behavioral concern, a functional behavioral analysis needs to be conducted. So I just want to throw those really important points out there to piggyback on what you're saying. Sorry. I know we're going long.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for those amazing points. So we're talking about the family now. We're talking about the moms. So this is actually the parents. This is my last slide. So you might also need counseling. And then therapy is a safe place where you can talk honestly about everything you're feeling. Marriage or family therapy can also help you work out problems that the challenges of life with the child, with ASD person in your spousal relationship, or with other family members. So you don't really have to even pay for therapy. You can call a friend. I'm sure we've dropped our emails here. You can even talk to us. I don't know, but I'm sure the others don't mind, right? Do you mind? Others on the panelists, do you mind? I'm sure you don't mind.
No.
I'm sure you don't mind.
Okay.
Exactly. So you can send an email and you can express yourself, how you're feeling, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if it's straining the family, straining your marriage, you need to talk about it too. We know your child is going through a lot, but we also know that because of what your child is going through, you might also be going through a lot. And if you're both going through the same thing, then who can help who? I mean, if you're going through the same thing your child is, if you're weighed down, you're depressed, you can't help your child that much. So don't just push it in. Even as much as you're getting help today to help your child, it's important to also get help for yourself. If you feel you're depressed, if you feel you're angry, you're anxious. I mean, we've been at home with this kid for over 2 months now. I can imagine what it has been for some parents. So you need to let it out and talk. Give yourself time to talk. Maybe that's even what is happening. Probably you have all the routine, you have everything in a place, you know what to do. But you're getting angry easily, you're getting frustrated easily, and it's on the other side triggering your child's behavior out much better. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. I have to make it fast so that I don't exit 15 minutes. I hope I didn't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great points.
you.
Great practical advice. I love that it was really how to, really giving parents
Yes.
tools.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really very nice, and a lot of learning took place for all of us, I think, very enriching. And actually, we have taken a lot of time of our participants. In Malaysia, I think it's 1:30 or so. And in some other parts of the world,
Wow.
it's midnight or over that. So early
Thank you for
hours
staying
of
awake with us.
5th of June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In
Thank you
India,
for being
it's
awake with
nearly
us.
11 o'clock. So,
Wow, thank
not-
you. Thank everyone in India too.
Yes.
It was a learning experience for all of us, and we as panelists enjoyed a lot, didn't
Very
we?
much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And yes,
Thank
we'll
you.
keep on collaborating, and we'll, of course, invite the participants who attended today. And thank you very much to all the attendees for being such wonderful and patient participants. Thank you. And we received your questions. Many of the questions we answered, and rest maybe we will answer some other time. And I have recorded this video, and I'm going to upload it on YouTube, and maybe just connect it to the social media as well. And you can contact us with your questions and your suggestions. Yes, of course, we will get back to you. And would you like to say something, friends? Tris,
Thank you so much for this whole platform. It's been wonderful. And thank you, all the colleagues. I've learned a lot. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well for having me today. It was quite an honor.
And my sentiment is exactly. I'm so
Thank you for
thank you
having
for
us.
making me a part of this. I enjoyed it, learned a lot, and I hope it was helpful for the participants.
Yes.
And I've started getting messages from the participants. It's a very good session, enriching session, learning experience.
Great.
Thank you to all of you. So, can we conclude here?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay, bye then.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
staying up with us. I had a nice time.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.